Hello, my name is Lisa Shea, and this video is part of my Horror Authors, Horror Stories, Horror Writers short story series. So in this particular video, we're going to talk about The Nature of Evil, which is one of my short stories. This is 14 pages long and it's got 2617 words in it. So if you haven't read the story yet and you care about spoilers, now would be the time to go read it. If you don't care about spoilers, or if you are just going to plow ahead anyway, then we will get started. So in the process of writing horror stories, a lot of what people talk about is the nature of the characters who could commit acts that are harmful to other people. We would hope that most people in our world would act out of a good nature and try to help other people. So if they saw someone injured at the side of the road, they would stop and help them. And most people do have that kind of innate sense in them, if only because it helps society as a whole move along and work together as a whole. You help people because you're hoping that if you get injured at some point, they're going to help you. But there are types of people who have brains that function differently, and it could be because of a brain injury, it could be because of genetic reasons or other kinds of reasons, chemical damage reasons. So these are psychopaths and sociopaths. And that's just two of the kinds of people that can be on the outer fringes of a society. So psychopaths tend to be the calm ones who do things for their own self-interest but are able to charm other people into going along with them. And sociopaths tend to be the ones that are more full of rage and will lash out and hurt other people because it makes them feel good. So in this particular one, we have a psychopath, and the psychopath is not named and the victim is not named. So the style that this is done in is a formal kind of style, where it's all third person, you're not referring to the names of either person, and you're hearing it from the point of view of the victim while the character is interacting with them and doing things with them, and the victim isn't really aware of what's going on. It's not that the victim in this case is mentally challenged like in some of my other stories. This is just supposed to be a typical everyday person with typical faculties, so they're not being taken advantage of in that sense, but the psychopath is doing their best to get their hands on what they want out of this person, which happens to be their money. So these two women have met at the 10th high school reunion, so we assume that they're in their, late 20s, and they've met together at the psychopath's house to have some wine. So they're drinking. And the psychopath is talking about how all the popular girls were showing off their handsome husbands and all the trips they were in, but that she and the victim were still single, so they had been sort of the outcasts back in high school, and now they're still, they haven't achieved what they see other people having achieving, and they feel bad about it. So they talk about how they were, even as high schoolers, were curious about the concept of blame and who's responsible for bad actions. Is it a parent's fault for not taking proper care of their child? And that sort of thing. And then even at the reunion, the victim brings up that there was a girl, Margaret, who in school used to torment them and was a bully, and now they realize that Margaret herself had a really horrific childhood, and that there was a reason that she was full of anger and rage and was then lashing out at other people. So the father had been abusive, the mother ended up killing the father, and Margaret ended up in foster care after all of this. So she did not have a happy life. So, and then they talk about how the father, who was abusive, was still able to rescue a puppy. So he didn't have no feelings in him, but he was able to harm people and think that that was a reasonable thing to do. And then we mentioned one of the things that actually happened to me, which is involving the Salem witch trials. I go to Salem a lot because I love the town, and one of my ancestors passed away in jail during the Salem witch trials, so I also have a personal connection to it. And during the tours, they talk about how people were hung and people were pressed to death and all these bad things happen to people, and the audience tends to, nod somberly with these things that are going on. And then they'll mention that there were two dogs who were accused of being familiars to the witches, and the dogs were killed. And everyone gets outraged. Oh, how could they kill dogs, the poor innocent dogs? Well, the women and men who were killed were innocent too, but somehow we have this greater affinity to animals and react more strongly. Or maybe we're just inured to the idea that the witches were human beings who were killed, but the dogs shouldn't have been killed. None of them should have been killed. So anyway, this transitions into the idea that animals should be taken care of, and the psychopath is setting the victim up with this idea that they're going to fund an animal shelter. and leave all of their worldly belongings when they pass away to an animal shelter because they don't have children or family members to leave the money to, so they might as well help animals. And the psychopath mentions that, the psychopath mentions that she is in debt and that she doesn't have any money, and she pours some more drinks for the victim. And they talk about how Margaret's father was a drunk, and that life goes short, so you might as well take advantage of what you've got while you can get it. And how Mrs. O'Connell should have gone off and escaped with her daughter instead of attacking her husband and then getting herself put into jail. And then they do talk about psychopaths and sociopaths and how something is not quite right in the way their brain is working, so you could say they were just a victim of their own brain chemistry at that point, that they're not making decisions on purpose, they're making it because it's the way their brain just works naturally. So you would think that the evil character in this has a sense of why she acts the way she does, and she doesn't care because that's just the way her brain works. So then she convinces the victim to sign the paperwork to give all of her worldly belongings to this animal shelter, is what she thinks she's giving it to. She's actually giving it to the evil person. So she signs away all her belongings at death, which of course then means that death needs to be coming soon. So now the two friends show up, which are friends of the evil person, and they've also managed to get some rat poison in the name of the victim, so that there's a nice paper trail saying that the victim bought some poison for herself, went off and committed suicide, and left all her belongings to this animal shelter, which is a front for these three women who are going to go off and party in, I think they say St. Lucia and the Turks and Caicos, and do some snorkeling. So they have all sorts of good plans for where this money is going to go once they just get rid of this inconvenient victim. And it ends up with the victim going off, preparing to, not that she knows it, but preparing to get killed so that the money can get turned over to these other three. And the other three have no regrets or remorse. They see this person as a pile of money that's walking around. Clearly she doesn't need the money. There isn't any family or friends to worry about her once they're gone to contest the will, and they'll get their share of the money and they'll be able to go off and live a happy life after that. So it's a formal style. It's not full of a lot of the angst and tragedy and things that some of my other stories are full of. It's not full of emotional details of people screaming and raging and being unable to talk and all the other kinds of things that I address. But this is a style that is very popular. It was popular in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, and I enjoy it. It's a literary, poetic kind of style to it, so it's fun to write in this. And it's also with the characters being so open that it leaves it to interpretation, that it could be pretty much anyone. Anyone around you could be this way, and you just don't know it because they have a smile and they have a charming personality. And behind it, there could be, machinations going on where they're just looking to take advantage of people. So let me know if you have any questions about the story, if you are writing this kind of story yourself and want to get some feedback on it. Let me know what kinds of stories you're working on. Let me know what else I should talk about going forward in the other videos. And let me know if you have any feedback in general on the way that I'm doing these so that I can make changes to make more going forward. So be sure to like the video, subscribe to get news of my other videos, and I hope that you have a great weekend. Or week. I suppose I'm in the weekend. Alright. Night.